drag and spirituality, gender diverse. My name is Bonnie Violet. I am a queer chaplain. I am trans, femme, genderqueer, spiritual drag artist. I use she, her pronouns. And I'm super stoked and excited for you all to be here. We are going to be joining in a conversation with 3 other drag artists where we are going to engage in conversation around drag and spirituality, amongst so many other things you'll hear about gender and sexuality, and who knows what we're going to talk about, but it's going to be great. I want to take a second to thank our sponsor this evening, which is Glide Church and the Glide Pride team. Big shout out to them for hosting us and supporting this event happening again. I believe this is the third or fourth year that we've collaborated to put on a drag and spirituality event. And we are so glad that you all could join us this evening. Also, I wanted to give a shout out to for a queer chaplain. A queer chaplain. I wanted to just thank our Patreon members. Patreon is a way in which people contribute on a monthly basis to support the work of a queer chaplain, which a queer chaplain programming is conversations around drag and spirituality, around being trans and spirituality. We also are putting on a spiritual drag conference later this year in October that's going to take place in Chicago. And there's lots of other great things that a queer chaplain is working on over the next few months. So check out aqueerchaplain.org to learn more about the queer chaplain and to get connected with the Patreon. In the bottom in the ticker, you can also see a thank you to everyone. I'm not going to go ahead and thank everyone out loud at the moment, just because we have a robust conversation to have, and I have 3 artists that are chomping at the bit to get in here. So the first artist I would like to bring to the stage is Ashlé Blow. Ashlé Blow, hey girl.
Hey.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great this lovely Saturdays. It's good to see you.
Awesome. So glad that you could join me. And I want to also invite the Dragon King.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going? And last but not least, Bobby Friday.
Hello.
Hi,
everyone.
Hi, everyone. So glad that we all could be here this lovely afternoon on a Saturday in full drag. Full drag, right?
You don't need to see my pants.
I know, right?
Drag
Exactly. One thing I didn't mention is that for audience members, we would love for you to engage in this conversation as well. So feel free, whether you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch, to just put in the comments any questions or comments that you might have, and we will engage with them as much as possible. Also, you will notice the social media accounts and Venmo accounts and PayPal accounts of all the drag artists. So please do engage with those as much as possible. You can find them on the screen throughout the event, as well as you can see them in the description of the video. So I think that's enough of the logistics. Let's go ahead and move on with this thing. So I love, so you are artist number 31, 32, and 33 of drag artists that have been interviewed by myself to talk about spirituality. And I often like to start from the beginning. So I would love to hear just a little bit about your childhood, whatever comes to your mind that you feel like you'd like to share, but something from your childhood. Who would like to go first?
I'll go first.
All right.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ashlé Blow, pronounced they, them. Thank you again, Bonnie Violet, for having this event and having this discussion. My childhood, it wasn't the greatest, but there was definitely some bright spots that led me to being the performer that I am today. And I guess I was just a natural performer when I think about my childhood. I went to an elementary school in Bronx, New York, So that's where sort of religion and spirituality started for me. And one of the things I always wanted to do was, sing in the choir or play music or be in a play. So I was always very animated and wanting attention on me and wanting people to look at me and not wanting to not be seen. One of the dumbest things I did as a kid to get attention is I wanted everybody to think I had braces. So I put aluminum foil on my teeth and went to school and told everybody I had braces because I just wanted the attention. And I know the teachers must have looked at me like, what is wrong with this kid? But but I used to dress up like Michael Jackson and try to create hair out of yarn and like a what do you call it, like a headband. So I would like staple yarn to it and make it hair and do this sort of thing.
So fun.
Another thing I did, again, this is in the Bronx in the projects, is I would sing Annie, the sun will come out tomorrow, out the window. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Bronx and familiar with like the housing projects, but we all have like these gates on our windows. So I'm just holding on to the gate singing, the sun will come out tomorrow. I don't know why I did that, but anyway. But yeah, my childhood was filled with a lot of performing and joining choral groups and performing arts groups. And when I got older, I joined the chorus. I started doing drag, and here I am today.
Yeah, sounds like you were destined to be a drag artist one day. I've never heard anyone talk about braces like that. When I was little, I had a babysitter, and she had braces, and she was like, I just thought she was so cute and pretty, and so like I wanted braces because I thought like that's what would make me pretty, right, or whatever. But anyways, how about you? How about you, the Dragon King?
I actually grew up in a house that was very resistant to me doing performance. Like they let me do band, like I did alto and bari sax, but that was seen as more like just like educational enough that it would still like be useful to me. Like they really wanted me to go to college. My dad grew up dirt poor, had to do a lot of really difficult stuff just to get an education. So I understood where he was coming from. But he was very resistant to me doing like what little theater I managed to squeeze myself into. It was very resistant. And then I went to college. And then I came out. And then I discovered what drag kings are. And then I moved to the Bay Area. So here we are. But yeah, it was seen as like a distraction doing like theater or performance or something like, or stuff like that. So yeah, not all that much. In terms of spirituality, my father was raised Jewish, but then was, I don't want to say forced to become Catholic, but when his father left my grandmother, he was like, my grandmother decided, okay, we're going to be Catholic now, because he was Jewish. And so he grew up Catholic, sent me to Catholic school. My mother's Lutheran. The Catholics do not always get along super well with Lutheran. So it's just this, like, three religions were always mentioned and discussed in my household. And the, like, pros and cons and, like, different opinions were always there. So I did at least learn to, like, think critically about everything, but it was also sometimes confusing because it's like, I don't know. It was a lot of different identities like kind of mushed in, and that's why I really appreciate that with drag. I can at least kind of like parse through the Catholic school feelings a little bit. And my dad and I don't speak a lot, but I would like to talk to him more about his Jewish upbringing more and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Bobby?
Okay. So I'm like sitting here like listening to everything that everybody said, and so far I feel like there's just so much that I relate to, right? I think as like queer people and then like queer artists, we all sort of have these really like similar sort of like stories, or at least underlying parts of our story, right? But for me, growing up as a kid, I think I always loved performing. I always loved being center of attention. I mean, as long as I can remember. And the thing is that I was born in 1983, which just so happens to be the year that Madonna released her first full studio album. And I have been obsessed with Madonna literally like my entire life. Like there's like every pivotal moment in my life, there's a Madonna album and a Madonna song that like I can think of, and I think exactly of that time and what was happening. But it started with me like I used to watch the Like a Virgin tour video on repeat every single day and just like stuff sheets in the back of my shorts so that I could have a train and perform like a virgin on the coffee table. And so I always just loved performing, and I think as a boy, right, like growing up, and you know, especially like in the 80s, you know, I feel like things aren't so much like they are now. And we were, you know, I think and then of course I'm, you know, my dad is Latin and Mexican. And so then there's also that sort of like an expectation of sort of like you're a boy and you're supposed to act a certain way. But the thing is that I just never really was like interested in that stuff. Like I always wanted to play with Barbies, and I always like wanted to play dress up, and like I was always interested in fashion and beauty. And so it was like I learned early on to live this sort of like double life, if you will. Because growing up for me in school, like I think I started getting called a faggot in the second grade. And what was funny is that my parents divorced when I was 5, and so I like my parents were really great. They, you know, I think like every family we had our issues and stuff, but you know, after my parents divorced, we moved around a lot. And I remember that I always used to have this feeling of like every time I'd move and I'd start at a new school, it'd be like a reset, like, and then it would always be that same group of boys within 5 days that would like zero in on something about me, and then it would like I would just start being bullied again. So growing up, like I always felt really lonely, you know. I always felt I always had the sense that like something was like felt like wrong with me. But there was also this weird like sort of, I think that that's where the idea of being creative or being artistic, you know, like in that loneliness and trying to find a way to like fill it, you know, in my fantasy, it was always grand. I was always the most beautiful, like shining thing that like, you know, and people loved me for like who I was. And yeah, so I think a lot of that sort of played into it. And as far as like spirituality, that was also really difficult for me too, because I grew up in a Christian household. And, you know, there's some things about Christianity that I think that are really great about love thy neighbor and, you know, do unto others and that sort of stuff. But then I remember it very distinctively, actually. I was on a camping trip with my parents and my grandparents, and we were in Utah. We were at this water park that was an RV ground, and I remember standing in line, and these two older girls, they were like teenage girls. I wasn't a teenager yet, but I remember standing in line and them talking to me and asking me like, oh, so what religion are you? And then saying like Christian, and then them very like immediately, well, what kind of Christian? And that just put sort of this sort of, for me, put a like a big wall, because I already felt that like, because I was being bullied and I was already this sort of like outcast. I already felt like, okay, well, if there's this place, this is my religion, this is supposed to be my safe space, my spirituality, and I'm already then being asked, well, what kind of Christian are you?
Mhm.
That just made me feel like even more disconnected from things.